Good evening and welcome to Primetime News, live from the Newsfirst Centre here in Colombo. I'm Mahina Bongzo.
And I'm Madhushka Balasuriya. Well, Australia rewrote the World Cup record books today and solidified their place as the tournament favourites with a stunning display with bat and ball against Minnows Afghanistan.
We have all the action from today's matches at the 2015 Cricket World Cup coming up on Sports First, but first a look at your headlines.
President reveals to Parliament the conspiracy to disappear the National Drugs Policy Bill. Yoshita Rajapaksa summoned to Colombo Crimes Division. Former Minister Rohit Avegunawardena and former Deputy Minister Lakshman Vasanta Perera questioned at the Bribery Commission. Political parties comment on their preparedness for an eventual election.
මේ ඡන්ද කල් දාන්න ඕනේ කියලා කතා කරන අය නියෝජනය කරන්නේ එදා හිටපු ජාවාරම්කරුවෝ
මැතිවරණ කල් දා ගන්න අපිට අවශ්‍යතාවයක් නැහැ.
Tensions were at the idyllic Unawatana beach.
Taking a look at those stories in detail now. The National Medicine Regulatory Authority Bill was taken up for debate in Parliament today. The second reading of the bill was passed in Parliament today and the final vote was postponed to Friday, where amendments will be included in the committee session. Now, opening the debate on the second reading of the bill in Parliament today, President Maithripala Sirisena noted that pharmaceutical companies had made payments to facilitate the disappearance of the bill when it was initially compiled.
The current opposition leader, Nimal Siripala de Silva, had already completed a portion of this task back then. In December 2011, a progress review meeting of the Ministry of Health was held at Temple Trees and was chaired by former President Mahinda Rajapaksa. At the end of this meeting, I announced that work on the medicine bill had been concluded. At this point, the chief officer at the Legal Draftsman's Department, Teresa Pereira, said the bill could be completed and presented to Cabinet in a week. A week passed, and then 2 weeks passed. The bill was not presented. When I called the Legal Draftsman's Department, they informed me that they had nothing related to this in their possession and that this was in the possession of the former chief officer at the Legal Draftsman's Department. When I called her at her residence, she said that although she had retired, she could still furnish the bill as it had been saved on her computer. In the end, there was no computer, no bill, and she too went missing. I was informed later that 2.5 million rupees each had been collected from close to 400 pharmaceutical companies and related institutions. I do not know what happened to that money, but everyone knew who was in charge of the Legal Draftsman's Department. Mahinda Rajapaksa told me on many occasions when I was a minister that there was no need to speak of corruption and fraud and that the Auditor General would look after it. Honourable Speaker, all the ministers and MPs in this House are aware of how despondent the minister is when such a statement is made to him before the officials. The next piece of advice I was given was that I should not be suspicious of all the officials. Let them work freely the way they wish to. When that was said, the corrupt officials started engaging in fraud and corruption without restraint.
මේ දූෂණ වංචාවලට සම්බන්ධ නිලධාරී පිනුම් ගහගහ උඩ පැන පැන වංචා දූෂණ කරන්න පටන් ගත්තා.
Honourable Speaker, today I can be happy that this happened because if it had been rectified, I would not be president today.
ඒවා නිවැරදි වුණා නම් මම ජනාධිපති වෙන්නේ නැහැ.
අපිට quality lab එකක් හරියට නැහැ.
We do not have a proper quality lab at present. There are problems with quality. Although we look at the quality of samples, what comes out is not of the same quality. While prescribing the generic medication, the doctor may, if required only, place a brand name within brackets. But we will establish a quality assessment lab soon, and it will be independent of the ministry.
අපි ස්වාධීන කරන අමාත්‍යාංශයෙන් එළියට ගන්නවා. සේනක බිබිලේ ප්‍රතිපත්තිය
The adoption and implementation of the Seneka Bibile policy brings Sri Lanka great respect in the health sector across the globe, and we are happy to be able to confer that respect on our President Maithripala Sirisena today. Thereby, as the opposition, we have decided to extend our fullest support to this bill. There is no doubt about that.
අපි තීරණය කළා තියෙනවා ඒ ගැන කිසිම සැකයක් නැහැ. ජනාධිපතිතුමා ඇතුලේ හිටියා කැන්ටින් එකේ.
The president was in the canteen and we did not even know that he was there. It was a security personnel that informed us that the president was inside. In the past, when the president was due in Parliament, all of Parliament was shivering from morning. Parliament officials trembled, but that is not the case today and we appreciate it. Poor people cannot go to hospital. Honourable Minister, yesterday the mother of one of my members went to a private hospital complaining of breathing difficulty. When she was discharged, the bill was 350,000 rupees. The patient dies when they are discharged.
රුපියල් ලක්ෂ 3මාර. එළියට එනකොට මැරෙනවා ලෙඩා.
Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe provided a new interpretation on the status of the Maldives in Parliament today. Let's take a look at what he had to say.
පළවෙනි වතාවට පාරක් හදලා තියෙන්නේ මාලදිවයිනේ මේ අවස්ථාවේදී
මේ මාලදිවෙන රජයේ මේ පාර ඉදි කිරීම වෙනුවෙන් $99,000 ආසන්න වශයෙන් ගත්තොත් රුපියල් ලක්ෂ 13,000ක් ලබා දී තිබෙනවා. මේ මාලදිවෙනේ පාරක් ලබා දී තිබෙන්නේ කිසිදු ටෙන්ඩර් පටිපාටියක් අනුගමනය කිරීමකින් තොරව.
මාලදිවෙන සලකන්නේ ලංකාවේ කොටසක් හැටියට. ඉතින් දැන් ලංකාවේ ටෙන්ඩර් නැතුව ගන්නවා නම් මාලදිවෙනේ ටෙන්ඩර් නැතුව අරගන්න එක ගිහින් තියෙන්නේ.
අපේ රටේ කළුගල් ගෙනියන්න බෑ පිට රටකට. ලංකාවේ කළුගල් පවා නැව්වලින් අරන් ගිහින් තිබෙන මාලදිවෙනේ පාරක් හදන්න.
ලංකාවෙන් එවන්න බෑ. ඔබතුමා මොකද්ද කළුගල් ගෙවන එක දැන් බිලියන ඩොලර් ගෙනියනවා නම් අනික් වගේ නේද මොකද්ද මේ කළුගල් කීපයක් ගැන ඔබතුමා අඬන්නේ මෙතන?
කළුගල් ලංකාවෙන් බැහැර කිරීමට අවසර ලබා නොදීම මේ පාර්ලිමේන්තුවේම සම්මත කරලාද නීතියක්. එතකොට දැන් පාලකයන්ට පුළුවන්ද පාර්ලිමේන්තුව තුල සම්මත කරලාද නීති කිසිසේත්ම නොසලකා හරිමින් තම තමන්ගේ සිතඟිය අනුව තම තමන්ගේ ආසාවන් අනුව තම තමන්ට හැදෙන සංකල්ප අනුව කටයුතු කරන්න අයිතියක් නැහැ. මේ පාර්ලිමේන්තුවේ සම්මත කරන නීති වලින් වැඩක් තිබේ.
මේ පිළිබඳ මම සම්පූර්ණ වාර්තාවක් මේ සභාවට ලබා දෙනවා.
Meanwhile, Western Provincial Councillor Udaya Gammampilla responded to the statement made by Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe over the Maldives. The response was made at a press conference this evening.
මාලදිවයින ලංකාවේ කොටසක් කියන්නේ. මාලදිවයිනත් පෞගේ සෑම ජාත්‍යන්තර අර්බුදයකදීම කොන්දේසි විරහිතව.
It is said that the Maldives is an extension of Sri Lanka. At every international issue, the Maldives renders its support to us unconditionally. There are countries which render conditional support. This view may have been expressed citing the size of the country and since their population is small. If Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi also assumes that the Maldives is a part of Sri Lanka as mentioned by Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe, if this is asked as a grade 5 scholarship question, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi too will assume that Sri Lanka is a part of India. Do not let this thought become a reality. Dear Prime Minister, we are facing a number of issues internationally. Please do not create more issues.
ඉඩ දෙන්න එපා ගරු අග්‍රාමාත්‍යතුමනි අපිට ජාත්‍යන්තර වශයෙන් තියෙන ප්‍රශ්න හොඳටම ඇති ඒ නිසා ඇති ප්‍රශ්න නැති කරන්න ගිහිල්ලා නැති ප්‍රශ්න ඇති කරන්න එපායි කියලා ඊටාම බගාපත්තු ඉල්ලා සිටිනවා ඒ නිසා ඒ වගේම අග්‍රාමාත්‍යතුමාට කියනවා බුදුරජාණන් වහන්සේ දේශනා කළා තියෙනවා වාචාය සංවරෝ සාදු සාදු සබ්බත් සංවරෝ වචනේ සංවර කරගත්තම සියල්ල සංවර වුණා වෙනවා කියලා.
Moving on to a story that we're following very closely here at Newsfirst. The aviation company purportedly owned by parliamentarian Sajjan Gunawardena has issued a statement over the recent exposés that were made by Newsfirst. The focus of this statement is the cargo plane that has been parked for several months at the Bandaranaike International Airport.
Newsfirst recently revealed that a Boeing 727 cargo plane had been parked at the BIA for several months. Kosmos Aviation, allegedly owned by Sergeant Gunawardena, had stated on its website that the aircraft was used for cargo transport within the SARC region jointly with Sri Lankan Airlines. Issuing a communique explaining the matter today, Vajra Kalinga Vijayawardena, director of Kosmos Aviation, said the aircraft had been obtained solely for the purpose of cargo transport on a lease basis. The statement bearing his signature states that at no time can passengers travel on this aircraft. The statement also notes that the agreement between the company which owns the aircraft and Kosmos Aviation was annulled on the 29th of August 2012. Kosmos Aviation also notes that payments have only been made for flying hours. The statement reads further that payments owed to the BIA have been made by the company which owns the aircraft. It must be pointed out that at no point did Newsfirst even mention that the 727 was being used for passenger transport. At a media briefing convened by Minister of Ports, Shipping and Aviation Arjuna Ranatunga yesterday, it was revealed that the aircraft is owned by a company known as Lanka. It was also noted at this media briefing that this company had not made any payments due to the BIA over the recent past for parking this aircraft. The questions that we posed were in relation to the ownership of the aeroplane and the reasons behind it being parked at the BIA for an extended period.
Yoshida Rajapaksa, the son of the former president, was called to the Colombo Crimes Division today. A statement was recorded from him over the discovery of a light aircraft at a storage facility at the Naharayampita Dedicated Economic Centre.
This statement was recorded as part of the ongoing investigation over the discovery of a light aircraft at a storage facility at the Naharayampita Dedicated Economic Centre on the 3rd of January. My brother Yoshida Rajapaksa was called here to give a statement on a display item. So we came here and reported on it as soon as we were told. I believe most of these allegations were made when the previous regime was in power as well. Then and even after the election, we have maintained that we are prepared to prove that we are blameless. I believe this too was a result of that. We have done nothing wrong.
The Commission to investigate allegations of bribery or corruption has launched investigations into former Minister Rohita Abe Gunawardena and former Deputy Minister Lakshman Vasantha Perera.
The Commission to investigate allegations of bribery or corruption said that investigations were launched following a complaint made to the Commission.
We have provided all the statements necessary in this regard, so conduct these investigations speedily and follow the conclusion of the investigations. If any wrong has been committed, mete out punishment. The faster the better. Focus on more attention on every document and person and initiate these investigations. But we are not thieves.
Meanwhile, the Bribery Commission said that the investigation on MP Lakshman Vasantha Perera commenced yesterday. United National Party parliamentarian Buddhika Patrina made a complaint with the Commission to investigate allegations of bribery or corruption today. The complaint was made on a private housing institution which is currently charging money without the approval of the central bank.
Former chairman had invested the finances of the institution in various other business entities. So we have arrived here at the Commission to investigate allegations of bribery or corruption because these public funds have been misused. We urge that an investigation be conducted into this, and if there are any politicians involved, take the required legal action against them.
Meanwhile, the JFP lodged 20 complaints with the Fraud Investigations Bureau today. The complaints comprised of anomalies which have taken place within the country's National Lotteries Board, the Milko Company and the National Water Supply and Drainage Board.
We are ready to submit more information which we possess to this institution. We are submitting these documents to an institution which does not only collect documents but will also make an active intervention in the process of returning the money of people which was stolen in an ad hoc manner. If those who stole are just thrown in jail, what will happen is that the prisons will be overcrowded. What we want is to confiscate the money which these people stole from the public rather than them being thrown into jail and spending a comfortable stay in prison.
Speaking at an event held in Kolonnawa today, Western Provincial Councillor Susil Kindalpitia commented on MP Sajin Divas Gunawardena.
There's a cargo plane parked at the Katunayaka airport. Who owns it? MP Sajin Divas Gunawardena has 4 helicopters. Can such wealthy people exist in a developing country like ours when they have no business to their name? An MP from Maldives spoke to me. He asked me to please come and visit and see if the islands they have been purchased by the people from my country. The MP was speaking at an event held at the Kolonnawa Divisional Secretariat to present certificates to young women who had passed a sewing course. An exhibition featuring their designs was also held.
Convening a media briefing today, the United National Party commented on the steps that will be taken against corrupt individuals.
ජාතික ආණ්ඩු සංකල්පය ගැන දැන් කතා කරන්නේ අමුතු පිරිසක්. මෛත්‍රීපාල සිරි
A certain group is speaking of the national government concept. Those who worked against President Maithripala Sirisena and those who appeared for corrupt persons and smugglers are today speaking of national governments. Persons who are calling for the postponement of the elections are represented by the former racketeers. In order to protect those who reached deals, several officers of the CID and the police did not take action against wrongs committed by the previous administration. We cannot allow for their lives to be protected.
නොදී තමන්ට ඕනේ අර හිතවතුන් ආරක්ෂා කරන්න අපිට ඉඩ දෙන්න බෑ.
Questions were also raised on the Colombo Port City project.
චීන සමාගමේ කොටස්කරුවෙක් තමයි චීන රජය. එන්නේ චීන රජයට ඕනෑම වෙලාවක අපේ වරාය මැද තියෙන කොටසේ තමන්ට ඕන විදියට
A partner of the Chinese company is the Chinese government. Thereby, the Chinese government will receive the right to bring in their naval vessels and ships to the center of our port at any time they wish. Over the recent past, submarines and other vessels too had entered. This depicts a serious issue which confirms that permission has been given without abiding by the country's rules and regulations. This project is in a position where it cannot go ahead. There is a requirement of the country to nab the corrupt. We will do it. However, it will take some time to look into those, investigate them, hand over the information to the respective institutions and take them to court.
පරීක්ෂා කරන්න ඒකට අදාළ තොරතුරු සොයා ගන්න සහ ඒවා අධිකරණ මට්ටමට ගෙනියන්න යම් කාලයක් යනවා.
The Colombo Port City project was also one of the points raised during the AmCham breakfast meeting this morning in Colombo.
As you know, there was lots of representation on the Port City project during the election campaign, and what we said was that if those concerns are there about environmental feasibility, that we are going to look into it. This is something for environmental specialists, for the scientists to actually tell us if it is possible to do it. If it meets all the regulatory conditions, then the project can go ahead. If it's not, then we will give it time basically to cure the defects of the project, because I don't know of any project which doesn't have problems. So we need to look at it pragmatically. People are expecting a yes or no answer, and a yes or no answer cannot be given on such a complex project. And I think we need to be fair. And also this involves investment, it involves agreements, it involves how the government treats its agreements and so forth.
Speaking to the media today, the Sri Lanka Freedom Party expressed that its aim was not to postpone the elections.
The United National Party has not come into power in Parliament nor in the Provincial Council. There are attempts made by the opposition leaders of those councils and several members to present affidavits to the governors and cause confusion within the administration. The people have not given a mandate for the National Executive Council. Today marks 50 days of the 100 days. This is a half century for them. They need to bet slowly to reach the century. This cannot be stopped abruptly. The Prime Minister and the government are aware that the alliance is 138 members. This government will last only on the President's 100-day program. The changes to the executive are connected to the election system, which will take time. We do not have any requirement for the postponement of the elections. Moving to other local news now, work on dismantling the breakwater at the Unawatna beach was temporarily halted today. This was done following a tense situation that arose between two groups of residents.
Newsfirst carried a special report on the environmental damage caused to the Unawatna beach as a result of this breakwater. After the revelation made by Newsfirst, the Coast Conservation Department took steps to remove a part of the breakwater, for which work began yesterday. Pathways had been prepared to transport the machinery to the site of the breakwater. However, a tense situation arose between a group of persons who are against the breakwater being removed and a group of persons who want it removed.
We informed the Coast Conservation Department on the same day they built the breakwater, and this destruction was caused at the breakwater which they constructed illegally and without proper scientific research would turn the villagers against each other. After the breakwater, we got back the beach that was lost. It was not an artificial beach. We got back the beach which was there originally. What has happened today is that an opinion has sprung up where they say that 1/3 of the beach has got eroded as a result of this.
While the Habaradua police was deployed to control the crowd, the engineer for the Gaul district of the Coast Conservation Department, Chanaka Vinod, too arrived at the location.
Well, up next is Action TV.
The defeat of the budgets of several local government institutions last year made evident the displeasure of representatives of the ruling party with the chairpersons of these bodies and was certainly not a mass conspiracy. When the most powerful individual in any institution begins to act arbitrarily and does not listen to representatives from his own party, the apt opportunity for these representatives to show their protest is by voting against the individual with power at a decisive moment. This is a democratic principle that is also followed by ordinary citizens. As per the Local Government Act of 1987, when the head of a local government body fails to pass their budget on 2 occasions, the subject minister is vested with the power to remove such a person from their office. As per these provisions, the heads of several local government institutions where the government held power last year lost their positions. As a result, a trend where the heads of other local government institutions began engaging with government and opposition representatives in their local councils in a more democratic manner emerged. Nevertheless, the amendment that was passed in Parliament by the government served to further entrench the arbitrary nature of local government authorities and did not serve to strengthen democracy. The amendment adopted was that even if the budget is defeated, the head of the respective local government institution would not lose his or her position. As such, the heads of local government authorities have been given the opportunity to act disregarding the views of other members of the council. When considering the manner in which the chairman of the Ampara Urban Council has employed this amendment, it would be difficult to hope for anything resembling fiscal discipline from any local council. In November last year, the chairman presented this draft of the budget for the year 2015 to the Urban Council. After the members agreed to it, the chairman announced that the budget would be presented to the council and adopted in December 2014. However, the year 2015 dawned with the Ampara Urban Council not having passed a budget. This poses a serious problem with regard to the continuity of this public representative body and fiscal discipline. However, for the Secretary to the Urban Council, its assets have become akin to a personal inheritance. The Secretary has seen fit to charge assessment rates from residents in spite of the absence of a budget and has also incurred expenses. According to this document listing the payments made, a sum of close to 2 million rupees has been incurred on non-essential expenses, which includes alcohol. When the Ampara Urban Council shows great enthusiasm for incurring non-essential expenses when it has not even passed a budget, is it not a precursor to local government descending into chaos?
In business news now, the International Monetary Fund says that achieving a deficit of 4.4% of GDP in the country will be challenging. A staff mission of the International Monetary Fund led by Todd Schneider conducted post-program monitoring discussions in the country from the 23rd of February. The mission met with government and central bank officials as well as civil society and private sector representatives.
We welcomed the government's commitment to good governance and increased transparency as well as financial and fiscal discipline. We generally agree with the authorities that the medium-term fiscal consolidation should remain a linchpin for macroeconomic stability and policy, ensuring a durable reduction in Sri Lanka's public debt. However, we highlighted a number of concerns with respect to the interim budget. In our assessment, looking at the numbers and what we have in front of us so far, achieving a deficit as low as 4.4% of GDP is probably going to be challenging. And we felt that the authorities should consider some contingency measures should revenues fail to materialize as projected. Further, in our view, the one-off tax measures introduced to finance the interim budget do not, from our point of view, constitute a step towards a more effective tax system. But we and the authorities agreed on the need for a more comprehensive reform to streamline the tax system and reduce or eliminate exemptions to put revenues on a steady upward path. And technical assistance missions will actually be following the completion of our mission in the next 2 to 3 months, and will be focused on a number of these areas.
When questions were raised as to whether further funds will be provided to Sri Lanka, Todd Schneider stated that the IMF does not see a BOP need and that they are not considering financing for a BOP need.
Still in local news, subject ministers state that the public has still not received the full benefit of the price reductions imposed on a number of goods. In order to find a solution to this problem, the ministers point out that they would expand investigations carried out by the Consumer Affairs Authority.
The State Cost of Living Committee summoned all officials of the Consumer Affairs Authority to Parliament today to discuss the problems that have arisen as a result of the price controls on goods.
The government reduced the prices of 13 goods to help reduce the cost of living. Not only that, we reduced the price of fuel, the price of a gas cylinder by 300 rupees and the price of a packet of milk by 60 rupees. Now the problem the government faces is whether the public is benefiting from these concessions. A problem has arisen as to whether the consumer is being benefited.
Consumer Affairs Authority. Our ministry reduced the prices of goods and these prices were gazetted by the Consumer Affairs Authority. But now we are receiving complaints on a daily basis that prices have not been reduced in certain areas. Today we advise these officials to take quick action on this matter. These officials can request the help of the police or ask for police protection at any given time in order to carry out their duties. We have informed the police on this matter.
Continuing your local news, 4 persons who were arrested by the police special investigation unit over charges of selling coal worth 528 million rupees to India without the consent of the cabinet have been released on bail. The order was issued when the case was taken up at the Colombo Fort Magistrate Court this morning.
A former chairman of the Ceylon Shipping Company and 3 officials from the Ministry of Power and Energy, the Ports Authority and the Treasury are among the suspects in this case. The investigations into this case were entrusted to the Special Investigations Unit by the Inspector General of Police following a complaint lodged by the Secretary to the Ministry of Power and Energy, BMS Batagoda. Police headquarters also announced today that they had recorded a statement from Power and Energy Minister Patile Champigaranavaka regarding the case. The minister had noted in his statement that the transaction in question had taken place in the contravention of the approved procedure without cabinet approval. The police noted that while they will be recording a statement from the former Secretary to the Ministry of Power and Energy, he is currently in Australia.
Several cultural centres are being constructed in the Central Hills with funding from the Decentralised Fund of Parliamentarian J. Sri Ranga, the General Secretary of the Citizens Front. The parliamentarian recently inspected the cultural centre being built at the TRC St. Cubis Estate in Thalawakale.
These cultural centres are being built with the funding from the Decentralised Fund of the General Secretary of the Citizens Front, MP J. Sri Ranga, with the view to improving the standard of living of those living in estates. The MP looked into the construction of this cultural centre and also provided instructions on future actions.
The people living here fulfill all their needs in a living space that is 8 feet by 8 feet large. Such a situation only exists in the Nuwara and Badulla districts. That is why I decided to build cultural centres. When this centre is built, the children in this estate can come here for their academics. Events and other functions can be held here. I have given the builders the necessary instructions. I have instructed them to ensure that construction is of a high standard. I have held discussions with the administration of the Corville as well. Other politicians do not engage in such discussions. Why? Because they look to skim off 200,000 from each project. Look at politics in the Central Hills today. When Digambaram initiates a project, Muthu Sivalingam blocks it. When Muthu Sivalingam does something, Digambaram uses the police to interfere. This is the state of politics today. This culture must change. But the people in the estates continue to live in these slums.
MP J. Sri Ranga also inquired into problems faced by people in Thalawakale. The MP also visited the Sri Muttumari Ammat Kovil and engaged in religious observances.
The leader of the National Unity Front, Azad Sali, says questions have arisen regarding good governance. He made this statement at a media briefing convened by the Unity Through Power Devolution movement.
If we have given a 100-day program to the people, it must be concluded in 100 days. People in the export-import business in this country are not very happy today. There is a government which cannot differentiate between rogues and good people. We need to identify these people for them. There is no one to look into it, and this is the situation faced by businessmen. An election must be held when the 100 days are up. It was said the Lanka cement plant was being acquired by the government and no one was allowed to go there. What happened inside? All the machinery is being sold for scrap metal. They were at it again yesterday. We informed the IGP of this. We spoke to the minister and informed him that this was happening in Lanka. This must be stopped immediately. Good governance has not been implemented as yet.
දැන් මේවා වාම නවත්තන්න ඕනේ. තවමත් ව්‍යාපාරණේ ක්‍රියාත්මක වෙලා නැහැ කියන එකයි මට අපි කියන්න තියෙන්නේ. මේ අපි මේකට එකඟ වුණේ මේ తాවකාලිකව වැඩපිළිවෙලට ඉක්මනින්ම විධායක ජනාධිපති ක්‍රමයේ සාය අත්‍යවශ්‍යයි.
We agreed to this out of the necessity to swiftly prune the executive presidency and address other pressing matters. We are not hoping for anyone to remain for 2 years or 5 years more. Most of the people who were involved in the thievery and thuggery are seated in this parliament. We ask them where the good governance is.
පාර්ලිමේන්තුව අපෙන් අහනවා කෝ යහපාලනය කියලා. යහපාලනය අහන්න. Well,
Madhushka, going by the matches that have been played at this World Cup, I mean, so far, it's really proven a point that the underdogs have become the dark horses. I mean, no matter what competitive score is on the board, they have been chasing it down pretty convincingly.
Oh, yeah, or at least making a fight of it. Obviously, like today's matches, if you look at the scorecard, you'll be hard-pressed to convince anyone of that status. But then again, don't take anything away from Australia. They batted brilliantly today. Afghanistan didn't do too much wrong. And even when it came to the UAE, you know, Pakistan really had to work hard for that total. So I think if the ICC is watching next World Cup, cutting out the associates, bad idea.
Yep, the associates have really proven that they're here to stay and here for good.
That's right.
Well, with that, we conclude today's edition of Primetime News. Thank you very much for joining us, as usual. I'm Mahina Bongzo.
And I'm Madhushka Balasuriya. Good night.